Zineb Sedira. I'm an artist based in London. I really work between London, Paris and Algiers. I do different forms, video, photography. But in my heart, I think I'm really a filmmaker, so this is the medium I'm the most at ease with. The earlier work in my practice were very much attached to my personal history, like more autobiographical works. Growing up in France in '63, I was born, so I was growing up in the '60s. Algeria just got its independence on the 5th July '62. To be in France around that time after France had lost, so it was quite a difficult thing for us because obviously anyone who was Algerian would kind of were facing quite a lot of racism. And I grew up actually seeing my parents pretty badly treated by people. But I did a few pieces of work around this issue. One called Mother, Father and I, where my parents talk about the immigration to France, and then also the Algerian War of Independence, because my parents were in Algeria when Algeria was French, and they were fighting against the French. You know, they were freedom fighters. And on the other hand, they decided also to come and live in France when the Algeria became independent. So it was really interesting in making them talk about why you live under colonization, under the French rule, and you kind of get rid of that rule. And then after you come back in France to live again under that French rule with the same set of racism. For the first time, I was hearing my parents really talking about this very painful moment that I had a memory about. And a lot of things made sense, you know, in terms of, all my trips back to Algeria, and the happiness I was facing there. And then, obviously, as I said, growing up in France, schooling and things were quite difficult at times. Yeah, so I did a few pieces around there, but also I became a mother in the early 90s. So I started to look at my relationship to my parents in a different manner, and especially to my mom. And because I was already interested in her oral history, in telling stories and recording stories and perhaps archiving and collecting stories, I made my mom and my daughter speak to each other in that piece called Mother Tongue, where each of them speak in their own mother tongue, my mom in Arabic, my daughter who was born in the UK in English, and me who was born in France in French. So that prompted a whole series of work looking at the relationship between my mother and I and my daughter and the transmission that comes with it.
What time did you finish?
Mangeait à la cantine?
On finissait à 4 heures.
And how do you tell your identity when your identity is quite complex, perhaps painful at times, but also very rich? During that time in the early 90s in Algeria, it wasn't really possible to travel because there was what we call the Civil War, the Black Decade. So I stopped my contact with Algeria. It was quite difficult because my parents had gone back to live in Algeria. Then in 2004, I was invited to the project in Algiers, and things calmed down in Algeria, obviously, so I went back, and then suddenly it kind of prompted a totally different set of work because for the first time I was able to make work there, on the land of my parents, or my land, if you want, rather than about Algeria. So the work became much more infused with landscape and seascape, with an aesthetic which was less kind of documentary as the previous work was, like interviewing, and there was a lot of speech, a lot of people who were present, and the family was present. Some people have made the comment, why aren't you working with a family anymore? And I'm like, but obviously for me to be in Algeria is a family. And the sea, in French, la mer, it's the same word for the mother, la mère. So the quality of the work became more filmic, perhaps, and more poetical. So that went on for quite a while with pieces of work like Middle Sea, Saphir, Floating Coffins. And then at one point, I went back to the earlier style of filming, where I kind of started to infuse a mixture of both.
Where will we travel? How will we go?
And that's where it led me to make a piece of work like Gardien d'Image. It's again an interview, a discussion where I listen to somebody's story, but the way it's shot is more complex than the earlier work, which was very straightforward camera, myself filming.
Mais ça, il avait conscience.
And here you have also a piece with a lighthouse keeper. He's speaking about his role within that lighthouse, but again infused with some kind of really beautiful and filmic shots. Every work is very personal and has some personal element to it. And even in the piece, The Lovers, and perhaps that's why I call them The Lover, I see the people in there, like when you think the lighthouse keepers who've collected, all those objects, place them very carefully in a certain order with some handwriting there. I really feel those images. And the other one, for example, of the archive with all the handwriting, there is this kind of really human presence to it.
Thank